This is an unboxing and review of the HTC One M9. So here it is, guys, the HTC One M9. Let's take a look around the box. On the box, we have some information on the bottom. On the top, we have Verizon logo. Let's see what we have on the back. So on the back, we have a bit of information about the device. Android with HTC Sense. This has Android 6.0 Marshmallow with HTC's skin over Android. Qualcomm Snapdragon 810, octa-core, 64-bit processor. So this is an octa-core processor, sort of like the S6, but not in-house like the S6. It's a Snapdragon. Nano SIM, as is most devices these days. Internal memory is 32 gigabytes, so a pretty good amount. Also micro SD expandable up to 128 gigabytes. 3 gigs of RAM, 5-inch Full HD 1080p display. HTC BoomSound, which I've heard is the best speakers on the market, but we'll get into that in a second. The main camera, the back camera, is a 20 megapixel. It can shoot 4K. The ultra pixel is no longer a thing in the back camera, so they got rid of that and went with the normal megapixels for that. But the ultra pixel is still a thing for the front-facing camera for your selfies, and that's really good in low light because of that ultra pixel. The only thing I've heard that is bad about this device is the camera, so I'll take a look at that in a second. And on the front, HTC One M9 with a Verizon logo right there in the top left corner. So let's take a look inside this box. So this just sort of slides out like that. Now I did get this from a third-party dealer, so not everything is going to come in the box like it should. So right away we're presented with the device itself in the plastic there. So there's just the plastic. We can lift this out. Let's just set that over here for now. And then we stick our finger in here. So it looks like all that comes in here is a microfiber cloth for cleaning the screen and whatnot, and HTC's turbocharger. It actually only charges up to 1.8 amps, so not quite as fast as Samsung's fast charging, but they still call it a turbocharger, and that's it. So let's take a look at the phone itself. We can unwrap the packaging here. There we go. Oh, it's kind of stuck. There we go. So it looks like the micro SD card slot is in the SIM compartment. Let's just take a look at the phone. Let's see, so on the front we have those dual front-facing speakers, HTC BoomSound, which are supposed to sound quite very nice. There's the front-facing ultra-pixel camera right there. Around this side, we don't have much of anything, just sort of the glossy metal side, except for the SIM card and micro SD slot right there. So on the top there is a big black bar. The infrared blaster is actually only right here on the right hand side, so I'm not sure why they made that black bar extend over the entire top of the device, but you know, it makes it look uniform. Nice, I guess. So on here we have SIM card slot on this side. This side's only a micro SD card slot, pardon me. Here are your volume buttons and the power button, which is a bit textured differently, so you can easily tell the difference between the power button and volume buttons when you're using the device. So the power button is actually lower on the device, which may be a bit, I don't know, weird to some users. But other than that, classic HTC full unibody metal build. Feels quite nice in the hand since you're touching cold metal. It feels really premium. On the side here, it's actually a different color than the rest of the device. So on the silver version, this band is gold, but on the gunmetal version, which I have here, it's actually a blacker tint than the rest of the device, sort of like the lettering on the back. So there's that 20 megapixel camera with dual tone flash. Let's go ahead and boot up the device and see what we have here. So here we are, guys, with the HTC One M9. So I've set it all up, I've made it the way I like it, and so far I notice a couple things. First off, that it is very snappy software. So as you can see here, everything is responding very, very fast, very responsive. Everything just happens in a millisecond, so that's pretty nice. Another thing I notice is the screen doesn't actually extend to all sides of the display. So under the glass, there's actually a black bezel going around right next to the actual metal bezels of the phone. So I thought that would be a bit larger. I suppose only 5 inches is okay, but other than that, it's a nice display. It's quite vibrant, it's quite sharp with a 441 pixels per inch. This is a 1080p display, which is contrary to a lot of smartphones that came out in 2015, being not Quad HD. But to me, honestly, it doesn't make a difference. It looks just as sharp as the Galaxy S6 or the Nexus 6. So it's quite a nice display, and I'm sure the 1080p resolution helps a lot with the battery life as well, since it doesn't have to push all those pixels. So one thing I noticed between the HTC One M8 and the HTC One M9 is the lack of the dual camera setup like the one from last year. So users liking that dual sort of camera setup to give it that extra range in focus and everything actually don't get that anymore. They try to remedy this using something called bokeh. I think that's how you say it. And what it actually does is it takes a picture of the device and then focuses out from it. So it actually does sort of the same thing, blurring the background and bringing the object closest to the device in perfect sharpness. So you see how it focused out from it, and now when I go into the picture itself, the background is blurred, but the object itself is actually quite sharp. So that's how they remedy that for people who still like that. Apart from that, the camera is actually not as bad as I thought. So if I go into the camera mode right here, the only thing I notice is that exposure is absolutely terrible. When I am trying to take pictures, I notice like I touch a white surface and it darkens, or I touch a dark surface like this and it lightens, completely blowing it out of proportion. So I'm finding that there is either too much exposure or not enough exposure. So that's leaving me wondering, where's that middle point? I have not been able to find it in the short time I've been using it. But I will definitely keep looking. But for right now, that doesn't look too promising. The inside camera, however, as you can see here, is actually quite nice. You can see me just fine over here. You could see the phone I'm using to film. You can see everything quite clearly. Exposure is nice, colors are nice, and I think that's a lot to do with that ultra pixel camera. Another new addition from the HTC One M8 to the M9 this year is the theme store. So if I drop into settings really quick here, and you go down to personalize, there's actually this cool thing called the theme store. So if you go down here to change or edit theme, you click on that, go over to the sidebar, and you scroll down to where it says themes, and you click themes or recommended or whatever. It will actually show you a lot of themes that you can put, and this does a lot more than just, change some of the parts of your display or your user interface. It actually changed how things work, how things look, and how things move. So I think that's pretty nice. I'm gonna leave it as stock right now, since I like it that way. I guess I'm just kind of playing like that. So another great thing about this device, and supposedly the best thing about this device, is the speakers. So HTC dropped Beats Audio and went with Dolby surround sound this time around and produced these BoomSound speakers. They sound even better than the Nexus 6, even better than last year's HTC One M8. So let's see how they sound now. I haven't actually tried them yet. Let's see what we can make happen here. That is very clear. That is quite nice. Wow. That is very, very impressive. The HTC One M9 screen is quite impressive to me. It's a 5-inch display, 1080p at 441 ppi. It's sharp, and the colors are great. It's not quite AMOLED colors, but it's pushing it. It's actually, the colors represent nice well. The whites are great. The contrast is great. Brightness, so far, I use this a little bit in direct sunlight, and it's actually fantastic in bright sunlight. So that is quite nice. Another thing that they introduced with Google Now and Android 6.0 Marshmallow is called Google Now on Tap. So if I go to any sort of web page here, let's go to Phone Arena because those guys are pretty great. And if you take any text on the screen and you hold down the home button, it does this sort of thing. And in a couple of seconds, it will analyze what is on your screen and give you cards and information about it so you can do more research off of that page. So as you can see, it saw LG G5 on there, and look, LG G5 right there. And I can go to that and it'll bring up more information about the LG G5. So that's pretty darn cool. I like that a lot. Blink feed is new and a bit improved. It's still the same as last year with all the sort of movie tiles and things, but I like it actually. It's quite nice. It keeps all your social media and everything all in one place for you to check it out, so that's kind of nice. So in this device is a 2800 or about there milliamp hour battery. I know it's not exactly that, but I should be close. So in this battery, they advertise 2 days, but I have read reviews and watched reviews on this device before, and most people say they get about 1.5 days of quote-unquote normal use. So I don't know what normal use is to them, but to us it should be relatively the same. So all in all, the HTC One M9 is a pretty solid device, quite literally. It's got that unibody aluminum, great amazing build quality as always from HTC. It feels great in the hand, a lot more gripability now that it doesn't have those curved sides like they did with the M7 or the M8. It is kind of glossy though. It has the brushed metal finish instead of just sort of a solid sort of aluminum finish. So take that how you will. I like it personally. It's still metal. It still feels great. It's got amazing speakers. It's got an amazing screen. The only thing I have to complain about is, as HTC, the camera. I don't like it at all. The dynamic range is terrible. Exposure is either too much or too little. So that kind of sucks. That's kind of a downfall. I had hopes for this camera. Anyway, there you have it, guys. The HTC One M9.